Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Could we quiet down in the back? Everybody, quiet down so we can begin. Thank you very, very much. Thank you all for showing up. This is a robust public forum night. Thank you all for coming on this December 9th City Council meeting, beginning with a public forum. And I welcome you all. I'm going to remind you of the rules, and I'll just give you a little heads up now. We have 53 people signed up to speak, so I will cut you back to 2 minutes. And so those of you towards the back of the line will have plenty of time to rewrite your remarks for those 2 minutes. So a reminder of the rules: the public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official or are on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward, if known. The timer and lights indicate the time you have to speak. The red light indicates the end of your 2 minutes. And as usual, we have a second chair there. I'll call 2 names at a time. The first one can come to the podium. The second one can wait his or her turn in the other chair, and so we'll move as smoothly as possible. And one more reminder, we have a very full room here. People are going to wait for a long time for their very brief 2 minutes to speak. And so there's just really one rule here, and that is that the audience is quiet, that you're respectful both of the person who is speaking at the podium and of your neighbors on either side of you in the auditorium, so everybody can hear, everybody feels safe saying what they have to say. And so I thank you for that in advance. And with that, we begin with Joseph Quinn, followed by Tim Kovash.
Good evening, and my name is Joseph Wynn. I'm in the Southeast Hills in Ward number 2. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you tonight, and in some cases, it looks like play the guitar as well. I moved to Oregon 3 years ago to take a position as a government attorney in town. And while I speak regularly on behalf of the federal government, today I'm speaking on my own behalf as an owner-operator of an Airbnb in town called the Treehouse Library Suite. It's a dedicated guest suite at the bottom of my 3-story house. It doesn't have a full kitchen or laundry access, but it's a good short-term rental. In fact, it was there when I bought the house. It was some of the reasons for why I purchased the house. I put in time improving it. In a short period of time, it's become one of the most popular Airbnbs in town. In the past 3 years, we've had over 543 guests. This year, only 2 days have not been booked. So we are doing well, I think. But tonight, I'm here as a short-term renter, and many folks are here who will also talk about their stories. I'd actually like them to stand. All of those who are short-term renter, please stand. You can see it's a big group, and we're all wearing blue. But what we're not is hidden corporations or foreign investors. We are stay-at-home parents who are seeking additional income to allow us to be with our families. We are artists who believe in our craft, but need short-term rentals to allow us to pursue our passions. We are public servants who have chosen to sacrifice and serve the public good, and we're small business entrepreneurs. We offer a lot to this community. As ambassadors to this place, we provide a home for travelers who are going to come and spend their money here, go to concerts, go to the University of Oregon, go to bars, go to wineries, but know that we're responsible. We listen to our neighbors. We're happy to talk to them. We get regulated. We get publicly evaluated. We publicly evaluate others as well. So that's very good control. So we just ask you, as you think about these issues, and we appreciate you looking at it diligently, be careful, listen to it carefully, because you're making a big impact on our lives.
Thank you. Thank you. Tim Kovash, followed by Linda Sisson.
Hi, my name is Tim Kovash. I've been an Airbnb host for 6 years. I live in Ward 3, and I realize this is a difficult topic, and I appreciate the time and matter on the attention. What I do believe is that there's not enough data for such a large decision that could be made at the current time in regarding to short-term rentals. At risk is possibly millions of dollars of lost sales and revenue for lodging. That's money that would go locally here into the city. What we do know is in 2018, there was about $12 million with Airbnb and VRBO business that came in here locally and did produce over $1 million in a TRT transient room tax that was collected. This creates small businesses used by locals, not just out-of-towners. A lot of locals use these services. And we also know there are concerns about livability, housing, parties. What we don't know is about these concerns is in regards to availability of housing, in regards to noise and parties and garbage. Is there any information regarding complaints, any collection of that over time, the last year or two? How often is this going on? Do we know any of this information in regards to these potential issues? What I would think that could be a good idea going forward is if we can try to collect some data, have some information for some understanding on this subject. It's very complex. There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of stories and a lot of information to really look at in time in regards to these things. So maybe possibly like a registration license program so the city can begin to understand how many of these houses are full-time rentals, short-term rentals, what's really going on, so as the city we can understand where we're going with this, as well as a complaint review process to understand if there are complaints, how many are there, what can we do about it. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you. Linda Sisson, followed by Eve Montanaro.
Thank you for your attention to our issues. I'm Linda Sisson. I'm in Ward 2. And we've been short-term rental hosts since early 2014. The rentals that we have used to be student renters. And after the city had given all the tax breaks to big developers to build student apartments all over, the market really changed for the students. And the ones that we were getting were far less desirable and caused a lot of damage to our places. So we decided to try something different. So we spent a lot of money redoing them and doing our vacation rentals, which we really enjoy, and we've been doing it successfully and paying taxes for 6 years now. I also wanted to mention that we have 3 modestly priced apartments that are subsidized by 2 of our short-term rentals. And we have long-term renters that were there when we bought the building, and we didn't want to kick them out. So we just have left their apartments the way they were and not fix them up to make more money. But if our rentals get taken away from us, then there'll be 3 more people who will lose their housing. And I'll just say one more thing. I think one thing that seems to be missing from this discussion is the ramifications on the community of what we do, not only the money that we've lost, all of our employees that will no longer have jobs, the gardeners, the laundry. It just goes out in all directions and affects a lot of people. So what I think we need is to all get together and get some information, develop creative and well thought out solutions where all of the stakeholders will be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Eve Montanaro, followed by Paul Schultz.
Good evening. I've been a Eugene resident in Ward 7 for 20 years now. I came to Eugene as a University of Oregon student, and I am one of 2 in my department who was able to remain in Eugene. My fellow students wanted to stay, but our local economy did not support them doing so. As a professional here in Eugene, my career involved providing a collaborative public forum for all stakeholders within a given geographic area. Considering the interests and needs of all stakeholders is not an easy job. I appreciate the challenges you face as the governing body of our city. Our city faces many challenges: housing availability and affordability, and neighborhood livability, to name a few. Given the diverse challenges and needs of our residents, I believe it is imperative that the City Council develop and adopt fair and balanced ordinances based on current and accurate data. Ordinances that result in a positive gain for the community as a whole and not just a few. 4 days ago, I received a call from a previous guest who had rented my short-term rental several times while visiting family in my neighborhood. This guest is now my neighbor. Since that call, she informed me of the city council process. Since that call, I've watched the work session of September 23, 2019. After reviewing all of the materials provided for that meeting and the draft ordinance provided to the city council for deliberation, I was taken aback by anecdotal perceptions offered by some councilors, lack of accurate and current data provided by city staff, and finally, the biased language of the white paper. In the September 23 work session, Councilor Taylor acknowledged that there are two sides to the issue. I agree. I am here tonight to
Thank
ask
you.
the city council, am I done?
Thank you. Thank you. Paul Schultz, followed by Will Phillips.
I want to thank you for the chance to address the City Council. I appreciate everyone's efforts trying to deal with a complex and emotional issue, as you can see. My name is Paul Schultz. I live in Ward 2. I've been a resident of Eugene for over 40 years. I'm retired from teaching at Sheldon High School, and I'm lucky enough to own enough rentals to understand the market. I rent them at affordable rates, but I also have a room in my house that I use on Airbnb. My guests are from all over the nation, all over the world, and many of them try to settle in Eugene. This is a very complex issue, as you guys know. Many unanswered questions. Are people buying up multiple houses to create Airbnb monopolies, empires? Are owners absentee, not even living here? At the parties where the cars, noise, and garbage are happening, are they more disruptive than existing long-term rentals? Where are the patterns of complaints? What are the unique problems of every neighborhood? And I understand neighbors' concerns. What are the differences between short-term rentals, home shares, and non-owner occupied? There's a lot of complexities here. I urge the City Council to consider policies based on local realities, not the anecdotal reports or experiences from large cities or coastal regions. All local stakeholders deserve consideration to develop enforceable regulations that achieve the greatest compliance of everyone. So please, let's consider a round table of stakeholders. Should include short-term rental hosts, neighborhood representatives with issues of safety and security, the motel-hotel industry, which is a silent influence here, local businesses, the university, law enforcement, tourist associations, and many other stakeholders who should be around the table. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to be part of the next step if there's anything I can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Will Phillips, followed by Reverend Wayne Martin.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Will Phillips. I have long-term rentals in Eugene in Ward 7. Been there for 21 years, and while I have long-term rentals, I am very aware of the need for short-term rentals as well. I'm represented by Claire Surratt, who has been extremely helpful with some of the other issues with Railroad Quiet Zone and making the Whitaker Block Party a more family-friendly event, so I thank you for your help with that. For 10 years, I worked for a research organization that often had international colleagues come to Eugene for short-term trainings and workshops. They often chose to stay at Airbnbs rather than other places because, and they had told me their primary reason is they want to be in the neighborhoods, in the communities, and not feel like they're in a hotel isolated from the community they've come all the way over to visit. My primary concern for speaking tonight is that I would not want the council to base policy decisions on incomplete or incorrect information without adequate input from actual short-term rental owners. Peripherally involved with the Active Transportation Committee, which used to be called the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And in my view, that committee would be an excellent model for a short-term rental advisory committee. Such a committee, the purposes would be first to represent the community and constituent interests in short-term rental decisions. When short-term rental issues arise, the committees could address them one by one to come up with solutions that would be satisfactory to everybody involved. The second purpose would be to advise the city staff and community organizations and partners on implementing Eugene's short-term rental strategy, and to provide the feedback on issues related to short-term rentals. So I would urge you to consider the creation of a short-term advisory committee.
Thank you.
For your time.
Thank you. Reverend Wayne Martin, followed by Jennifer Sherlock.
Good evening, friends on the council, Madam Mayor, Madam Manager. I always appreciate the opportunity to come, and if I have anything good to say or have any advice to offer, I like to do it. A year ago this month, I was present here in this room when you received the first draft of the TAC report. Our friends from Boston who came out and did a very thorough historical and cultural analysis of our problem here with the large number of homelessness. It's a big and ominous task, and I don't know that we've made a lot of progress, but I'm not complaining. I'd like you to dedicate yourself to a great 2020. There's a lot at stake. I would like to offer a suggestion, and that is that you see the unhoused as people who can be your allies in working to partner with you to solve the problem that is both yours and theirs. I suggest, because it's Christmas, that maybe you throw a little Christmas dinner. 2 weeks from tonight, when we would normally be having a council meeting. You could use the Baker Center, you could use the atrium, you could use places that have enough space for tables and food. I really believe, as Peter Chavon of the city staff has already found out, that they have the resources to be able to do the work, share in the work, and share in the talent pool. He's finished phase 1 of the TAC report using unhoused labor. So please consider having a dinner and getting to know what their talents are and explaining your agenda and your proposals, and I think they'll appreciate it.
Thank you. Jennifer Sherlock, followed by Holly Berry.
Good evening. I live in Ward 1, and Emily is my city council. I thank all of you for your service to steward the place that I call home. I have a one-bedroom, non-owner occupied Airbnb that I depend on to put my daughter through college. And I will need it to put my son through college next, and after that, I will need it to help see me into retirement. As a longtime resident, I value my community very much. I've lived in Eugene in the same house for over 24 years. I depend on my Airbnb to help me meet my financial obligations, and I don't believe it harms our community. In fact, I believe it benefits our community. Providing interesting and unique places to stay brings in interesting and unique people. It adds diversity to our town. And generally speaking, as a rule, because of Airbnb's review system, Airbnb guests are thoughtful, considerate, respectful people. If they aren't, they're simply removed from the platform. And when I say Airbnb, it's an umbrella term for VRBO and HomeAway and all the others. We provide a significant amount of revenue for our city. I direct guests to my favorite restaurants and grocery stores. We're like Eugene ambassadors. And finally, a little bit about the impact on the neighborhood. I keep up the yard at my Airbnb super well because my reviews depend on it better than I keep up the yards at my long-term rentals because I don't have as much control over those. I make sure my guests know the property is not suitable for parties or events and remind them this is a residential neighborhood and to be quiet after 10 p.m. and respectful to their neighbors. I've had 2 sets of grandparents choose my Airbnb because they have toddler grandchildren who live right across the street or right next door. I'm sure my neighbors are glad to have my Airbnb there for their parents to stay there. And darn it.
Thank you. 2 minutes is short. Holly Berry, followed by Carolyn Wells.
I also want to thank you for all the work you do, and I know how hard it is to balance. I've had my own business as an entrepreneur and you push on one thing and something else falls apart. So I'm here, I'm in Ward 2 also to talk about short-term rentals that have changed my life. I was an artist for many years, so I had no retirement plan, invested in a few properties here in Eugene. I have some long-term rentals and I have one non-owner occupied Airbnb. I also have one in my house that is owner-occupied. I'm here to talk about the non-owner occupied part of the draft, hoping that the 90-day limit is going to absolutely destroy any kind of non-owner occupied. My non-owner occupied was full of it was full of students that were, I gave them, a good value on the house, but over time, it started to become destroyed, as we know. Now it's an Airbnb. Again, to repeat what the previous person said, the neighbors next door are so excited because their family's coming there for Christmas and the grandkids can be next door and they can run back and forth. And I'm just hoping that we can reconsider the non-owner occupied, maybe limit it to residents of Eugene, and I have my other two places are below market prices, which the Airbnb affords me to do. And my parking is actually less with the Airbnb, especially now in the winter when we hardly have any guests. So the 90 days, and then also to consider that we could be non-owner occupied maybe if we are part of Eugene.
Thank you. Carolyn Wells, followed by Janine Sepulveda.
I think it's Sepulveda, but that's good.
Sepulveda, thank you.
I'm Wells. Hi, I'm Carolyn Wells. I came to Eugene in '95 as an escapee from Albuquerque, which at that point was rapidly becoming unlivable. I moved into a house at 740 Madison Street. It's a lovely historic house. It's been there for over 100 years. But my mother, who is now 99, couldn't navigate the front steps, and we had two dogs that we had just a little bit of property, so we bought a place in the Washburn in Springfield. But I didn't want to let go of that house because it's lovely. I could see myself retiring there, actually. I could walk to the Apple. I could walk to the Whit. And I could do most anything I needed to as an older person, so I kept the house. But I didn't want to put it into long-term rental because I know how that goes. I've experienced that. I've seen it. And it would just destroy this lovely little place. So I have now a bunch of kids in 4 corners of the country, and they come, and that's where they stay when they come to visit. And I keep it as a short-term rental because that's how I can pay the mortgage, which unfortunately I still have. I think that I hear us here throwing mud against the wall to see what sticks. I don't really think we have a clear understanding of what the issue is against short-term rentals. I know there's a lot of talk about things happening in other cities. I'm not sure we're seeing that so much here. I think people are afraid of what might happen and are acting proactively, and I think that we need to back up and slow down and look at what really is going on here and treat these as small business owners, which is what we are, and contributing a nice thing to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Janine Sepulveda.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Thank you. Yes.
Followed by, Barbara Everts.
Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Janine Sepulveda. I live in Ward 2, and I've been a resident of Eugene for over 30 years. For me personally, Airbnb has been a very good lifeline. As a single mother, it has helped me to hang on to my house during hard times, and my house is pretty much my one and only asset, so it's very important to me that I do hang on to that. I want to talk a little bit about the guests I have who are great. Most of them are parents of U of O students or families looking to relocate to Eugene, and they have very specific needs. They want a house with a living room and a kitchen, a place to cook for their kids. They want a backyard where the kids can play and the dog can play. And they come year-round. They often stay 1 to 2 weeks. Their needs are not really met by the long-term rental market or the hotel industry. They have very different needs. So our Airbnb provides that alternative for them. I know Eugene also works very hard to encourage in tourism and visitors to the town. So limiting the number and types of places that people can stay, I think works at cross purposes with that goal of bringing more people in. Because again, hotels are not appropriate for all types of visitors. I want to repeat what Holly said about limiting Airbnb rentals to only 90 days. For many of us, it would make it impossible to continue renting out our places because we just wouldn't be able to afford to maintain our properties if we're only providing accommodations for that amount of time. I also think that many people, if they were limited to 90 days, would choose to rent out solely for the summer, which is the busiest time of year. But again, we have people who do come year-round, and then there would be a shortage of accommodations other times of the year. So I just ask you to please consider everything I've said. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Everts, followed by Jana Hudson.
Yes, I'm in Ward 2, and my husband and I, we actually became acquainted with short-term rentals on Airbnb because we were travelers. And we were greeted into communities, and that were just wonderful because they could steer us to the local place, find that cafe, and we do that as hosts. We were inspired by that. We have an accessory dwelling unit behind our main home, and people love it because it's a quiet, respectful, safe neighborhood. I haven't had any problems with any of my neighbors with parking or noise. And actually, we keep we mow our lawn a lot more often now because it has to look nice too. We have found we have a variety of guests of have different needs that come and stay in our place. And one of the things that may be lacking and a need for a study would address the different short-term type housing needs people might have. We have people who come because they need to just get off the freeway and stay for a night. Most of the people who come have ties to our communities. They're visiting grandchildren who are walking distance, visiting friends, family, coming for weddings because somebody's getting married. We get to be part of that story, and it's very special to us. But we also find that there is a market for people who can't get a long-term rental, but a hotel won't take them because they're that short-term nurse who's on a short-term contract with the hospital. And they need a short-term rental to stay in. And they like a place that has a kitchen where they can cook. It's private. I've had a short-term nurse stay with us, a young lady who was getting her rotation for being a physical therapist. Another was a U of O student. These were all young women traveling by themselves that needed a safe place to stay while they were finishing up. And I really do appreciate your time and consideration of this important topic.
Thank you. Jana Hudson, followed by Michelle Renee.
Hi, my name is Jana. I'm an Airbnb superhost for 3 years. I live in Ward 2. I would just really like to point out that, or ask that you please not think of Airbnb as just a faceless mega corporation here to invade our city. We are your friends and your neighbors just trying to survive. It's really what it is a platform. It is a tool for us to use to create our own living wage jobs. I started as an Airbnb host when I went through a divorce, and I had been a stay-at-home parent for 3 years and a self-employed artist for a decade before that, and going out and finding a job that paid a living wage, not really so easy to do. So I was able to start my own Airbnb, and I, get to pay myself a living wage. I still have time to be an active parent and be involved in community organizations. And now I am a co-host for a couple other Airbnb hosts who do their own things and don't have the time to take care of their own places. So I also employ another mother, and this is a really great job for people with young children. We get to work while our kids are at school, and when our kids aren't in school, we can bring them with us. So we don't have to lose half of our income or more to childcare. This is a really valuable living wage job that we're threatened, feeling threatened that we might lose. So I just want to point that out. Now that I'm a co-host for other people, my husband was able to reduce his work hours so that he can pursue a degree in his preferred field. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michelle Renee, followed by Hannah Roloson.
Hello, I'm going to talk really fast because I didn't know how to limit it. My name is Michelle Renee. I've lived in Eugene for 26 years. I've been a substitute teacher at the Eugene International High School for 25 years. And I am a mother. I support a family of 3. I lead a meditation community. And I'm an Airbnb superhost. So that being able to share my home through Airbnb has been kind of a game changer for me. There's been times with my profession where I don't make enough money to make ends meet, and it's been a struggle. At times I've had to apply for food stamps to pull through certain things. And now I have just that little bit of security that's allowed me to help send my daughter to college, to fix the broken hot water heater when it breaks, to fix up my property. My property's looking better than it ever has looked before. And just the reduction of stress for that little bit has been incredible. My neighbors are all very happy with the Airbnb. And what I've heard is that there are, these concerns that Airbnb is the cause of the homeless crisis in Eugene or the housing crunch. And I just want to say that my space would never have been a long-term rental, and it won't be if I'm shut down. It just reduces the amount of taxes that go to the city and the amount of income I have to spend locally. And I do feel like we do a really great service in introducing people to Eugene. I tell them about local businesses. I send them to the Jordan Schnitzer Art Museum. We're ambassadors basically for people coming to visit our city. And I feel that it's an incredible service, and it's bringing local income to local businesses, not only the guests, but also me having extra money to spend in local. Anyway, there's more of it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Hannah Roloson, you can tell me how to pronounce it, followed by Valerie Harris.
Hello, my name is Hannah Rollison, and I live on River Road, and I own a 4-bedroom, non-owner occupied short-term rental, and I manage 2 others. Thank you all so much. I think we're getting toward the end of all of the short-term rental people here, so we appreciate you guys hearing us out. This is obviously a very important issue as we're all here tonight. So I am also a stay-at-home mom, and this has been my avenue to create flexible income, just like Jana. It is so important to me that I'm able to be home with my kids. I spend all of my time working when they're at school so I can get home and I can cook dinner for them and be a great mom for them. We are residents. You've heard it before tonight. We are not a corporation. We are hardworking residents of Eugene, and we've all found a niche that allows us to introduce travelers to our wonderful city. So there's a lot of value to what we do here. We support a lot of local businesses. You've heard this tonight. And I just want to say that using Airbnb, using the platform, allows us to vet the guests, to pay our taxes, and it also provides insurance. So Airbnb has been an incredible source for us to be good citizens. And I just want to lastly point out that the report that I saw presented to you guys on September 23rd in the work session had a lot of misinformation in it, and I urge you to check those numbers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Valerie Harris, followed by Bruce Searle.
Hi, my name is Valerie Harris. I'm a mom of 3. grandma of 5, an engineer, and an Airbnb superhost. I moved here from New York about 5 years ago, and I bought a larger home than I needed, knowing that Eugene was short-term rental friendly, and I would not have a problem renting between my kids' visits. So similar to someone else, I have my kids and my grandkids come and visit me. They come frequently, and it's a wonderful situation. I was dismayed and surprised earlier this year when I read that the city of Eugene was considering regulating short-term rentals. If I were no longer allowed to rent my home as a short-term rental, I would need to sell it, as it is much more than I need. In order to understand the intent and background for the proposed regulations, I have come to every city council meeting on this topic and am respectfully astounded by the misinformation that was the basis for this proposed regulation. The focus of the discussion by the council was around excessive garbage, parking issues, noise, safety, strangers in the neighborhood, and corporations like Expedia buying up homes to rent as short-term rentals. 3 points of data I believe are very relevant to include and for you to consider are that the first one is vacation rental hosts averages 3 listings per host, not hundreds. These are your constituents, not corporations. Since 2017, there has been a 102% increase in the number of senior hosts over 60 using Airbnb, and in fact are the fast and growing host demographic on Airbnb is senior women. This targeting of middle-class women in a town that does not regulate any other business in the neighborhoods or long-term rentals is abhorrent and ill-informed. The other issues noted, noise, safety, and strangers in the neighborhood, are the same problems for long-term rentals and other neighborhood businesses, which again are not regulated. And those can and should be fixed with the current regulations that are already on the books for these nuisances. New laws are not going to fix these problems if you are not enforcing the current laws.
Thank you. Please, please. Bruce Searle, followed by Stephanie McLaughlin.
Hi, I'm Bruce Searle. My counselor is Claire, Ward 7. Thank you. I wanted to meet you. I hope to share with you a little bit about the heart of Airbnb hosts tonight. I want to thank you for all that you guys do. Having been in the ministry for years and serving in our community for 35 plus years, my wife and I, as pastors, youth pastors, associate and worship leaders, and volunteers at our schools, and we know what serving it requires way beyond whatever it is you clock in for, and so I appreciate that from all of you guys. We've personally taken youth into our home to live and adults into our home to live. Some have stayed for 3 years, some have stayed for 10 years at a time because they didn't have housing or a place to stay, and they couldn't afford to place. So that sometimes cost us personally and financially to do, but we've done what we can to help people around us and in our community. 4 years ago, we took a big risk. We took the inheritance from my parents, $60,000, and I took a year off of the multiple jobs that I do to make ends meet, and Jennifer kept doing hers, and I remodeled our little backyard cottage. It took a year of 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, and then we had our first guest a little over 3 years ago. Airbnb has changed our lives. For the first time in our married life of 36 years, we can go to lunch once a week if we want to. We could take our kids out to lunch now and then if we want to. We can buy Christmas presents. We can pay the bills and know that we can pay the bills every month instead of, are we going to be able to make it? It's been such a relief and such a blessing for our family. It's brought more than a job or jobs to Eugene. It's brought us back into Eugene. Thank you for your time. I wish I could share you a lot other things.
Thank you. Stephanie McLaughlin, followed by Justin Schmick.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for your service to our city. I was born at Sacred Heart. I grew up here. I have a love for Eugene, and yet at 18 I felt the call to national service, and I joined the military. I raised 2 kids. I married an active duty Marine. I was pregnant on 9/11. My life fell apart, but part of our human nature and my programming is resilience, and each time I have experienced an issue with a landlord or had a reason to move, we've blossomed in our new neighborhoods. I can speak to or attest to the incredible difference that the Searle family has made in our community. I watched them renovate their cottage and make it something that sustains their family, which they more than deserve. I'm also neighbors of Joseph Wynn and his wife, and have absolutely no complaints, can have only nice things to say about the wonderful things that they're bringing to, or the people that they're bringing to our neighborhoods. I myself closed on a house on August 29th of this year. I bought more house than I can afford with the intention of adapting part of it to supplement my own income as my kids are at an age of fledging. And when I read of the precipitous changes that the city council had proposed, I saw my dream and hope of having stability go up in smoke. I would ask you to really take your time, slow down, do a thorough study, and talk to us. We want to work with you. We don't want this to get out of control and become something that nobody wanted in the first place. But please give us a chance to come to the table with you to come up with logical long-term solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Schmick, followed by Julia O'Reilly.
Hi, my name is Justin Schmick, Ward 2. Thank you for hearing me today. I've emailed my testimony if I run out of time. I just wanted to share my experience and some concerns I had with the new ordinance. So after high school, I worked hard, saved a little money, bought my first house, got married, we had a kid, and then moved to a more family-friendly home. We decided to keep our house with the hopes of using that money to pay for our kids' college. After having a less than desirable experience with a long-term tenant, we decided to look into short-term rentals. We started by talking to our neighbors, see if they would be okay. I looked into our CC&Rs to make sure it was allowed, and then I went to the city to learn about the requirements. Staff was very helpful and assisted me with the process. They confirmed that the STRs were permitted outright in my zoning and provided me with a handout explaining the rules of STRs in Eugene. The handout not only suggests it's a good way to make money, but it says it's a good way to help our local economy. So with that information, I made a big investment in improving our home to be suitable for a STR. Surprisingly, a few months later, I found out that new rules were being adopted to eliminate, potentially eliminate STRs in our community. Needless to say, that was a shock. Terminating lawfully established uses that are permitted outright in zoning is not consistent with how the city has chosen to regulate other new industries. As an example, the marijuana retail stores. Instead of eliminating them, we created regulations of forming new stores. The existing ones were able to lawfully exist. The new ones were regulated. There's no reasons why short-term rentals shouldn't be the same.
Thank you. Julia O'Reilly, followed by Laura Allen.
Good evening. Thank you again for allowing us to speak to this, and me particular tonight. I'm a business owner in Eugene since 2007. I've been providing motion graphics and web design for other businesses in town. I'm also an artist. I own my home. I work out of my home, both for studio and for my design business. And I'm now 4 years as an Airbnb superhost, on which I rely for filling in the gaps that a small business often suffers from cash flow swings. I feel safe in my neighborhood. I feel safe hosting. I feel that my guests are safe, provided with the tools that Airbnb in particular and some of the other short-term rentals provide for Airbnb hosts. I provide a very safe experience for travelers who may not have a budget for the higher cost lodgings in an area and who are not here to rent long-term. They're here for shorter terms. As for my guests, I've had people from 18 different countries of different ages and travel needs. I've hosted parents of college students, environmental law attendees, visitors coming in for basketball, volleyball, and football games at U of O, show horse people, nurses, doctors, pilots, young, not so young, entrepreneurs coming in here looking for opportunities, musicians, IT professionals, software developers, entrepreneurs, and artists and agricultural professionals and fashion designers. So that's the list of my Airbnb clientele. These are people who seek a class of lodgings that the hotel industry does not provide. And all of that, and other people have spoken to this before, but these people come into this community and spend money based largely on my recommendations when I give them to them. And I think that we all are acting as ambassadors for Eugene. So thank you for considering deeply what you're about to enact.
Thank you. Laura Allen, followed by Annika Nykanen.
Good evening. I think I'm starting a new topic. My name's Laura Allen. I live in Ward 8. I'm a member of the Sustainability Commission, but I'm speaking tonight as an individual. I want to talk about the Climate Action Plan 2.0. The draft plan that was released to the public does not reach the goals we need to have a stable climate for future generations. We will be 60% short if we follow this plan just based on our sector-based emissions. Spending a few years to update a climate action plan, which falls 60% short, is not acceptable. Eugene needs a much stronger plan, one that reaches the goal, has specific targets with measurable outcomes and timelines. If the city sustainability staff is unable to create such a plan, then the city should leverage community resources to do so. There is support for cities like Eugene who need to understand cost implications of specific actions in their climate action plans. There's a free modeling tool called the CURB tool, Climate Action for Urban Sustainability. It was developed by the World Bank in partnerships with C40 City Leadership Group. CURB helps cities prioritize their actions by evaluating each potential intervention based on the level of city authority, the level of technical difficulty, the implementation cost, the payback duration, and emissions reduction potential. Each action is then ranked by these criteria so the city can compare between actions and identify those that create the most impact while limiting costs. Cities who've used the CURB tool can see what their climate action items, which of their climate action items can have a positive return on investment and which will require more funding. Eugene's climate action plan doesn't provide this type of very important and necessary information, and it should. I urge the City Council to do something different than our current trajectory so we can have a strong climate action plan, one that will reach our goals. The current draft is not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Annika Nykanen, followed by Sophia Reyes.
Hi, I'm Annika. I live in Ward 2, and I'm here with the Sunrise Movement, and we're going to talk about our strike last week and the climate action plan. So on Friday, December 6th at 12 noon, more than 300 people in Eugene left their classrooms and workplaces to rally at the federal courthouse as part of a climate coalition led by us, the Sunrise Movement. The vast majority were young people. We were united in our call for a Green New Deal, a framework for a comprehensive set of policies addressing the interwoven crises of climate change and systemic inequality at the local, state, and federal level. We called on you, our City Council, to rapidly implement a new climate action plan, which actually reaches Climate Recovery Ordinance goal of 50% reduction in fossil fuel use by 2030. We asked the same of the county. We also demanded that Governor Kate Brown reject the proposed 230-mile-long LNG pipeline project and support alternative, safe, and sustainable jobs for the residents of Coos Bay and beyond. We heard speeches from a member of the Klamath Tribe, UO students, and the vice president of the Graduate Teaching Fellow Federation. Between speeches, demonstrators chanted, sang, and danced. At 2 o'clock, students from Churchill High School led us in a pledge of action before we marched here to the Free Speech Plaza, a symbol of our local power. Just outside this building, we collectively painted a mural representing our feelings about the climate crisis and our hopes for the future. Friday's strike was propelled by the momentum of the September 20th strike. That strike was likely the largest international climate demonstration in history, with over 7.6 million people in the streets, 2,000 in Eugene alone.
Thank you. Did you all sign up?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so whoever's next, I have Sophia next, followed by Sophie Bybee. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sophia Reyes, and I live in Ward 3. So you endorsed that strike, and we thank you for your support. But you need to know that these strikes will not stop until we reach net zero emissions. So today, please listen carefully to our suggestions for the Climate Action Plan and our demands for its implementation. All right. Tackling the climate emergency in Eugene depends on creating and implementing a quality climate action plan. As of now, the CAP 2.0 is both insufficient and worrisome. It is the product of 2 years of work and $450,000, and it still fails to get the job done. We are far behind in meeting scientists' climate demands. Many other communities do have adequate plans and are on the way to accomplishing their goals, showing us that conviction and perseverance do make positive change. This evening, I, along with other members of Sunrise, will present 4 points. First, how the CAP 2.0 process has been useful, the failures of the process that must be acknowledged, how the CAP still can and must be strengthened, and a look forward to an implementation phase that will not repeat the mistakes of the CAP 2.0 process. So first, there were some positive outcomes. The plan provided an analysis of Eugene's consumption-related emissions using DEQ's innovative methodology. Second, it served as a gap analysis showing that efforts by key local agencies will not deliver the needed carbon reductions. Third, it allotted resources, although a strong plan could have and should have been completed, although it hasn't been. The equity panel was a good effort and a step in the right direction. Finally, the plan moved the climate emergency up in the city's priority stack. So thank you for that.
Okay, Sophie Bybee, followed by Tyee Williams.
There were several failures of the current plan of the CAP that the city must accept responsibility for. 1. This plan was not made using the consumption-based goals and targets. We must stop bragging about being the only city using such goals since we are not making a real effort to meet them. 2. This plan will not meet the sector-based goal. As it stands, this plan does not even provide a complete framework for implementation, for an implementation of a plan to be built on. 3. What staff is calling research, that is, full information provided to council in a timely manner, was not adequately done. In work sessions, councilors asked again and again for more background and financial information from staff. Councilors, you must be more clear and direct about your need for further research, as it is evident that you have not gotten the information necessary to make informed decisions. 4. This planning process did not adequately engage the community for input and expertise. Aside from the equity panel, there has been no effective avenue for input from the community. The Fix It Fair and 4 focus groups are the extent of the outreach plans now in place. This is extremely inadequate, especially considering the stakes of climate change for Eugene's most vulnerable communities. These failures are not small. These failures have wasted valuable time and fostered distrust in our community. They also threaten our right to a stable, safe, and healthy future. Future efforts will need to both correct these past failures and ensure they are not repeated. Thank you. I'm in Emily Semple's ward.
Thank you. Tyee Williams, followed by Scott Lemons.
Howdy, Tyee Williams, Ward 7. This cap still can be strengthened before it is accepted. It seems from the November 18th work session that some of the councilors are willing to accept an inadequate plan for the moment. This logic represents a naive hope. Not getting it right this time is okay. You'll get it right next time. We need it right this time. An extension of 1 to 3 months would be acceptable if and only if there are new participants making decisions and council has given crystal clear direction about improvements to incorporate. Before the council votes to accept a climate action plan, many more climate action strategies must be added. At a minimum, we must commit to the following actions. 1, address emissions from other fuels, refrigerants, wastes, and consumption, all of which are missing from the current draft. 2, write a solid electric vehicle action plan. 3, build affordable and decarbonized housing with access to good transportation. 4, increase energy efficiency and conservation in all buildings. Increase rooftop solar generation. I'm gonna stop doing the numbers. Fully implement the transportation system plan. Enact an immediate ban on incentives for new customers by Northwest Natural. Create a plan to transition to electricity for all industrial, commercial, and residential uses. What this means is no new gas customers, which means no new pipe or infrastructure. And lastly, we need a plan to transition current gas customers to electric by 2030.
Thank you. Scott Lemons, followed by Carson Schmidl.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Scott Lemons. I'm from Ward 1. Hey, Emily, good to see you. Like we were saying, with a strengthened Climate Action Plan 2.0, our community will move towards implementation phase. Eugene's climate action implementation will be a decades-long project. Do not repeat the same mistakes during the implementation phase, please. Number 1, please develop plans for 1, 2, and 5 years that are specific, budgeted, and have a timeline. There also must be a responsible party for each component. This should take no more than 4 months to complete. Number 2, invest the community with joint planning responsibility. This means establishing a community climate accountability and advisory board. This board must include representatives from businesses, nonprofits, residents, the government, and the ECC players. Number 3, measure our progress. To do this, we need a dashboard up and running to track progress on carbon reduction as it is made. Number 4, make a robust marketing plan for community education and engagement. Expanding the Eugene Climate Free Challenge is a good place to start. Number 5, plan an all-city staff meeting to familiarize staff with the final plan and to emphasize that everyone must prioritize and budget for climate actions within their various departments. And lastly, number 6, start a climate innovation fund to invest in community projects that lower carbon emissions on an all-out standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Carson Schmidl, followed by Sienna Polk.
I am Carson Schmidl of Ward 2. I would like to read the pledge that hundreds of young folks recited at Friday's march. If you feel so moved, please join me. And you may repeat after me. I make a commitment to use my voice, to use my actions, to use my vote if I have one, to fight for a Green New Deal. I make a commitment to come back with more people when we strike on Earth Day 2020. I make a commitment to help climate champions win in November 2020. And I make a commitment to stop business as usual. If we don't have a Green New Deal by 2021. This is my pledge. To myself, to the people I love, and to the generations yet to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sienna Polk, followed by Thomas Hiura.
Hi, I'm Sienna. I'm from Ward 3. You have heard our demands, and now we ask you to use your power to make them a reality. The last time we were here, the council voted unanimously to support the student strikes. This also means that you voted unanimously to support the enactment of a Green New Deal, the #1 demand of our strikes. We see the CAP revision process as an opportunity for the city to go forward as a true leader in comprehensive, progressive climate policy. This means not only meeting the IPCC's demands for avoiding climate catastrophe, but enacting policy and implementing projects that simultaneously address environmental, social, and economic injustice. The current moment is an exciting one. We have the technology and public support to enact bold new solutions and tackle this existential threat. Now all we need is the political will. We, the young people of the Sunrise Movement, urge you to think about the effects of your actions, or lack thereof, on our generation and those that will follow. This moment is truly a crossroads for humanity, and we must fight for a healthy, safe, and just future for all before it is too late. Thank you, and thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thomas Hiura, followed by Pamela Kraus.
Thank you. Thomas Hiura, they, them pronouns. I live in Ward 9, which means that I am unhoused, and I live in an electric vehicle because I love the climate. I want to play a quick quote from that climate strike on Friday.
In the Sunrise Movement, we strongly believe in the power of song as a way to bring people together.
I also believe in the power of song as a way to bring people together. So this is a song I wrote about climate and a love affair and a post-apocalyptic situation when I was in college. It's called Spaceship. The scientists gave us a noble warning. The earth is on fire from global warming. And only the privileged can get out of here. They'll take the fast track through the stratosphere. Yeah, and I don't know where you're going, but will you take me up on your spaceship? I promise not to tell him you'll be my captain, and I won't say shit. And I don't know where you're going, then navigate me up on your spaceship, yeah. Don't know where you're going, but if you take me with you, then I'll go. Thank you for watching the City Council concert. I'm just some random dude, but I hope not to be one soon because I'm running for mayor of Eugene. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thomas Hiura.
Thank you. Pamela Kraus, followed by Eric Burke.
Delightful. Humor and music are common language. My name is Pamela Kraus. I live in Springfield. We are community. We have a climate and a sheltering emergency. We are not doing enough fast enough. I want to share with you 3 short experiences of mine from this week. Regarding unsheltered people, it's freezing cold outside. One woman I've known for some time now was kicked and her clothing robbed from her when she was sleeping unsheltered 3 days ago. When I took her supplies today, she declined them, saying, "Give them to someone else. This is too personal." Another woman who was the person who agreed to be interviewed by me out at relocation camp on 99 last year, who uses a walker and there were no safety ways to cross that road to get services. I hadn't seen her this whole time. It was a joy to run into her. She told me she had found her own housing, and her quote she ended with in our conversation was, "I did not have another winter in me." Comforts and profit are enjoyable and relaxing. I know that. I've been blessed with some of them. There are so many in our community who don't have that opportunity. If we are community, we need to all include each other in the best regarding we can do. So,
Thank you.
I'm going to offer what I carry with me always, but you might not need them and I don't.
Thank you. Eric Burke, followed by Mike Grudzian.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm the Eugene Director of Friends of Trees. I grew up in Eugene and live in Ward 1. Trees provide enormous benefits in many areas: climate, ecological benefits, public health, economic, social, and spiritual benefits, as well as cleaning our air and water. My reading of research is that the greatest return on investment a city can make is through investing in children's health and education and in trees. The City of Eugene's urban tree canopy is currently holding its own or declining and likely to decline much further fast. We need to set ambitious goals to build the urban forest that we need for our quality of life, for the health of our residents, for the plants and animals that we share our city with, and for the health of our economy and livability. Now is the time for the City of Eugene to make major investments in urban forestry for our future. The scale of the investment needed is large. Just to slightly increase our canopy cover over years, we would likely need to more than double street tree planting efforts. Friends of Trees is currently working with City of Eugene on a new 5-year community stewardship agreement. As we near completion of our first 5-year agreement, we are proud of our accomplishments and our partnership. Now we would like to do more. As you can imagine, to do more, we need more funding. Our community needs are growing, and to meet those needs, our community needs to substantially increase our investment in urban forestry. The time is now. We are poised to make a real difference. Thank you so much for your past and growing support of Friends of Trees and urban forestry. Let's continue to work together to make Eugene a national leader in urban forestry and build the urban forestry our community needs and deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Grudzian, followed by Ellen Firstner.
Thank you, Mayor of Business, and thank you, City Council members. My name is Mike Grudzian. I am in Ward 4. I am an entrepreneur, small business owner, a taxpayer, a voter, a Marine Corps veteran, and this is my 6th year as an Egan Warming Center homeless shelter volunteer. I'm also an executive fundraiser for Square One Villages that build tiny houses for the homeless. I'm an advocate for the homeless. And I am also an Airbnb superhost and a VRBO premier partner. You could say I'm a complex individual like this complex issue. And I come from Chicago where a mayor once said, shoot first, ask questions later. And I don't think that is the way Eugene is. I think that on a complex issue with many diverse stakeholders and just local business people and local residents involved, I would like to see more information. I'd like to dispel a lot of the misinformation. I'm going to let all the vignettes that were presented earlier stand on their own. And I'd like to see something like either a council, a board, a commission, and I'm happy to participate and engage in kind of a, let's find where the middle ground is, what's going to make everyone happy, but I'm a responsible short-term rental host. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen Firstner, followed by Linda Christensen.
Hi, I'm from Arcola. It was 2 days before Thanksgiving, and all through the town, freezing rain was coming down. People were driving with care, thinking of the happy holiday they soon would share. I, in my car, with batteries and food for a homeless camp to be had, while visions of pumpkin pie danced in my head. When down 13th I went and saw people breaking up tents. I stopped to see what was the matter, for people to do this in such nasty weather. I sprang from my car in a flash and let out a big gasp when to my wondering eyes should appear a sign that said, "You are evicted, you cannot sleep here." A little old man so downtrodden and sick, he knew in a moment he must leave quick. More rapid than eagles, a crew and cop they came, and whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now bum, now degenerate, now trash and loser, on transient, on punk, on addict and drunken boozer. Get off that planting strip, get away from that wall, now dash away all. They had no place to go, and in a few hours it would snow. The items rescued, soaking wet, would soon be their frozen solid bed. It was a cruel and inhumane move. What did the city have to prove? Why did this? I can sort of understand the business's view. To them, this is nothing new. I also would not want on my stoop someone's poop. It is the city that is in the wrong. This has gone on too long. While you sit there and lie, more people will die. Run over by a truck, running out of luck, dying from lack of care, down by the river, on the street, or who knows where. This matter rests on your shoulders alone. You are the ones who send out the crew to remove the people from their only home. Although I do not hold business as much in contempt because this is on you, there does not seem to be much compassion, which some as greed will do.
Thank you.
I hope you will all find it in your hearts to make this
you.
a city that cares, a city that's rich and beautiful and all matters shares, so we can truly say with delight, happy holidays, and to all a good night.
Thank you. Linda Christensen?
Good evening. My name is...
Hold on, wait. Just hold it 1 second. And you will be followed by Cynthia Black. Okay, take it away now.
My name is Linda Christensen. Since 1997, my husband and I have resided in Ward 5 in the planned unit development known as Champignon. Champignon was designed in 1978 by local architects David Edrington, Rob Fallon, and landscape architect Peter Thompson early in their careers, based on the theory of pattern language developed by renowned architect Christopher Alexander. Alexander proposed that through a set of interconnected patterns, a sense of wholeness, spirit, and grace, a vibrant residential community would evolve. 54 single-family residents set in just under 5 acres of then undeveloped Oregon white oak savanna, one of the few remaining in our area. The community was designed to promote a park-like setting. Such care was given in development that foundations for the cottage-style homes near the white oak trees were dug by hand. Narrow roadways were designed with the intent of creating opportunities for residents to interact and feel connected as they moved through the community. Champignon continues to be a notable community in Eugene. Architecture students frequently come to study the design and placement of homes. I come before you this evening to express my alarm that our unique community has seen one residence converted into a commercial establishment, with more units being purchased by this person, we assume, for the purpose of a second Airbnb. We do not take for granted the setting we prize. An active landscape commission works to improve and maintain our grounds. An architectural commission is active in maintaining the ambience of Champignon. I wish to state that zoned by city ordinances as a residential community, we purchased our homes in expectation of sharing our community with owners desiring the same. We did not consider that our residences would become transitory.
Thank you.
I urge you to balance needs of community as strongly as those of Airbnb owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Black, followed by Sue Wolling.
Hello. My name is Cynthia Black, Ward 1. My children went to school with Emily's children. I'm a member of the group Climate Revolutions by Bike. We advocate for biking as a low-carbon alternative to driving cars. We have a revolutionary vision of more bikes than cars on the streets every day. It seems radical because it is, and we need radical solutions to this climate crisis. Last week, I biked along the North River Trail at midday going to a doctor's appointment, and I didn't pass one other biker. Next to me was the raging river of traffic on that section of I-105 between Valley River and Coburg Road, which ODOT stats say has an average of 35,000 vehicles a day. I try to picture that river reduced to a trickle and a happy stream of bicyclists with me instead. The Eugene Transportation System Plan goal is to triple trips by biking, walking, and busing over the next 20 years. But I question whether this amount of increase is going to make the kind of difference to our CO2 emissions that we need. In fact, based on the waterfall graph in your climate action plan, you have a huge gap that your plan doesn't address. Why should we settle for a plan that has such a giant gap? I saw in the appendices some recommended additional actions to close the gap. Under transportation, one of those actions is, quote, city adopts more aggressive rate of implementation of the Eugene Transportation System Plan. Another is, quote, a new vehicle registration fee or fuel distribution fee for City of Eugene on fossil fuel vehicles or fuels. And another is prohibit the sale of fossil fuel-powered passenger vehicles in Eugene after 2030. I like these ideas. Why are these not a part of the plan? We need more than just infrastructure. We need a massive PR campaign. We need economic incentives, and we need a plan that will actually work.
Thank you. Sue Wolling, followed by Tomoki, I can't read this, Selengahi.
Hi, I'm Sue Walling, and I live in Ward 7. As you know, I've traveled around Eugene by bicycle for many years, and I've learned a lot about how to do it safely. For instance, I've learned that it's generally safer to ride in the street close to moving vehicles than to ride on the sidewalk where people may not see me at the intersections. I've learned to anticipate that cars coming out of side streets and driveways may well move halfway across the bike lane before they stop. I've learned that the car that just passed me may very well make a right turn right in front of me. I've developed a great deal of respect for gravity and the laws of physics. I've learned not to ride close to parked cars because somebody might open the car door right and knock me over. I've learned that even though I can see just fine at night riding on city streets, that I should wear silly clothes like this, and I should have lights on my bike so the motorists can see me. I've gotten to know a lot of cut-throughs and side streets to avoid busy streets. City councils dating back to the time of Ruth Bascom, as well as public works staff over the years, have created a bikeway system that allows somebody like me to travel safely by bicycle anywhere in Eugene, and I'm very grateful for it. But I'm not normal. Mom tried, it just didn't work. If we continue to build bikeways for people like me, we will remain stuck at a bicycle mode share of 5 to 6%. Our climate action plan, the TSP, and Vision Eugene call for more like 20%. We need to build bikeways that are safe and comfortable for people who don't have years of riding experience, like kids riding their bikes to school, or the young students from the U of O who spoke so compellingly last public forum. We have some really talented transportation planners. They know how to design and build the kinds of bike infrastructure that are increasing bike travel in other cities around the country. But they need your direction and support. Council needs to tell staff, we're serious about the goals that we've adopted, and we want you to build the infrastructure to achieve those goals. And if people complain, we'll take the heat, and we'll back you up, because we were elected to build the future of Eugene. Thank you.
Thank you. Tomoki, I'm sorry, I'm just.
Good evening.
Followed by Mary Christensen. Sorry.
My name is Tomoko Sekiguchi, and I live in Ward 3. I'm a volunteer with Climate Revolutions by Bike, a grassroots organization dedicated to increasing bike ridership in Eugene, in the city of Eugene, as a radical climate action. One thing we do is host monthly mass bike rides for climate every month. We promote and advocate for bicycling in Eugene because it is one of the personally achievable solutions to the climate crisis challenge. Now, one person riding their bike may be a drop in the bucket, but 25,000 people would make a difference. So our goal is 25,000 riders by 2025. That's what my shirt says. And this is in line with the CRO goals, and this means seeing as many as 8 times more bicyclists on the streets than we have now. This is the future that we must bring to fruition, and from the point of view of everyday riders, it is a fun and healthy way of life. In order to facilitate a mass transformation to bicycle transit, we need to make it easier, safer, quicker, and more pleasant. I attended the Central Eugene in Motion open house event and commend these efforts to create protected bike lanes and remove car parking from streets. This is a good step, but we must go further and faster to treat it as the emergency that it is. We need the leaders of our city to be an example for this effort, and I'd like to invite you to come to our rides. We ride every second Sunday of the month, starting at Monroe Park at 2 o'clock. They're slow, gentle, family-friendly rides. Please make it a priority in your schedule to ride with us so we can help lead, so you can help lead the way to make personal climate change solutions and walk the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Christensen, followed by Bill Aspegren.
Hi, I'm Mary Christensen, Ward 3, Climate Revolutions by Bike, 350 Eugene, mom and grandma. First, I stand for a robust climate action plan. I thought the youth said it beautifully. I echo everything they said, and I'm way behind them. I want to be involved with the plan. This isn't yet. I want to be involved with the plan. It's not your plan, it's our plan, it's my plan, and I haven't been asked to do anything yet, and I can't tell if I'm going to be asked to do anything yet. I see gaps in the plan, and there can't be any gaps in the plan. We have to allow for the growing population. I'm very concerned about that. We need measurable goals, we need annual reviews, we need adjustments as needed. It has to work, and we need to ask our large lever shareholders to do their share, because I heard that we asked them what they were going to do, but I don't think they've been given any direction. So we need a lot more clarity about this. I'm especially interested in transportation. I've been a cyclist in Eugene and a walker in Eugene for over 2 decades. This is a model, now Tomoko, from Portland's Climate Action Plan. We live in a car-centric place for sure, just like at most of this nation, and this has to change because we've got a climate emergency and because it's more humane. So this is from the Portland Climate Action Plan, and this is how they make decisions based on, for transportation. Walking comes first, cycling comes next, transit, and then shared vehicles and taxis, and finally, private autos. This is how it should be. This is the realm of livability. This is the realm of climate solutions. This is the realm that I hang out in, and so I've got some specific things here too. For walking, I walk a lot in Eugene, and we have a law that nobody seems to know about, which is that every intersection is a crosswalk, but that is just so not true. Is that right? I mean, it is so not true. So we need information, we need education for pedestrians as well as for cars and cyclists, and we need enforcement. And
Thank you. Thank you. Bill Aspegren, followed by Carolyn Jacobs.
Hi, I'm Bill Aspegren, Ward 3, and I'm sorry, but I want to talk about short-term rentals again. I want to talk about specifically about the short-term rental ordinance, which I think is quite good. Owner occupancy, however, is critical. Otherwise, you're just allowing hotels in residential neighborhoods without personnel present to oversee the activities there. The Eugene Code does not list hotels as a permitted use in residential zones. Eugene's residential zones are for housing, not hotels. In fact, if you strictly read the code, you can interpret it to mean that short-term rentals are not currently permitted in residential zones. That needs to be updated and fixed. The staff is proposing a 1-year grace period for any existing non-owner occupied short-term rentals. I think this is an excellent way to proceed. And permanently grandfathering existing whole house rentals is just not acceptable. Staff also proposes exempting owners from the licensing requirement if they rent their houses for up to 2 weeks for isolated events. And I think this is, again, another good proposal. Although I don't think football and rock concerts weekends should be considered isolated events, okay? As to the actual ordinance, the I don't think it's necessary for an owner to reside on site for any minimum number of days to have a short-term rental. However, if the owner isn't there, I don't think they should be allowed to rent it. I also think that we need to have off-street parking for these, and that's not really covered. I've gotten unabridged copy, which I've sent you, and I'll give to Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn Jacobs, followed by Sean Winter.
Carolyn Jacobs, Ward 3. So this is the continuing story of land and money, because the entanglement of land and money is behind the conversion of residential properties into small hotels with off-site owners. This is the story of the financial enrichment of investors undermining the health and well-being of our residential neighborhoods. 20% of the houses near me are now small hotels owned by investors living elsewhere. For every block that has a house with no resident, we know without a doubt that this situation is contributing to the shredding of the very fabric of our neighborhoods. A brand new Edison school means there are families who would like more than anything to find a house here in the neighborhood I live in the areas around the university. Faculty, staff, students would like to buy and rent houses that are no longer available. In the time of a housing availability crisis, it's hard to watch as entire houses disappear from the market, all because it's so profitable to convert an entire house into a small hotel. Well, let's be clear. There are absolutely no benefits to residential neighborhoods from hotels without on-site owners. There's absolutely no benefit to be had from strangers pulling suitcases down our sidewalks, from parking up our streets, or partying on front lawns. At this point, let me simply urge you to support a short-term rental ordinance which requires the owner to reside on the property. After all, reside is the root of the word residential, and a house whose sole use is as a profitable business has no place in our residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Winter, followed by Aaron Grady.
Hello, I'm Sean Winter. I run a value-added farm business. I'm here today to respond to your work session from November 25th, which was honestly a little hard for me to watch. It began with some testimonials about a trip that many of you took. Semple mentioned a homelessness shelter that she was impressed with. There was talk of addiction treatments that you were impressed with. Meanwhile, as another citizen mentioned, it's 1 year since tech, and there's no funding for that program. But when we got to the meat of the work session and Chief Skinner making his proposal for more money, all of you were ready to give it to him. Under the guise of public safety, he was basically given everything that he wanted, and it seemed like there's no amount of resources that would satisfy him. But I'd like to see, as a business owner, some more numbers outlining where crime actually is. For him to come through and say, I arrested this many people, I gave this many citations, that's not as relevant as saying, you know, what the crime rate is for our city versus other cities of our size. What do we pay for police versus other cities of our size? Unlike what Clark says, we do not have an epidemic of lawlessness in this city. Our crime rates are pretty normal compared to other cities and compared to what they've been for the last decade. What we do have is an epidemic of housing affordability and opioid addiction. Those we are off the charts. We're an outlier in those things, but we don't give our money to those things. We have a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of what do we do, I feel so bad, but we give our money to the police. And then our judge that comes in and talks to you has to remind several of you that we do have a constitution that protects people from being punished before they're convicted of a crime. And you can't just throw people in jail because they owe money they can't pay.
Thank you. Aaron Grady, followed by Jason Gonzalez.
Hi, my name's Erin Grady, and I've lived here for 15 years, and I want to say thank you to all the friends and strangers who came to talk about housing justice and climate justice tonight. My concern is about the group Eugene Wake Up and the problem of their existence. The rhetoric of this group is too strong, inaccurate, and inappropriate. Their Facebook is full of comments referring to houseless people as lawless criminals, violent junkies, pedophiles, bullies, vandals, degenerates, vermin. One person even rants about how we need to stop feeding the bears in our town. Their official ask seems to be for the city to be more tough on crime. They want more cops, more jail beds, more arrests, panhandling bans, and the removal of camps in the legal public greenway. Yet despite all of this, they repeatedly assert how much they love the homeless and want to find solutions that are good for everyone. It reminds me nearly verbatim of the current Trump-era fascist rhetoric that we are all surrounded by all the time, that has about immigrants on the border, that has led to family separation and children in cages, and most alarmingly, tons of Americans who think that we need those things. I hope that as a town, we reject rhetoric like this and realize how dangerous it can be. I hope we do not let wealthy business and property owners bully us into centering ourselves, the housed, as the ones who are unsafe, and turn our backs on our community members living in poverty and facing the real risks of living outside. City Council should pursue housing first policies, affordable housing, harm reduction projects like homeless shelters and safe injection sites. And the citizens of Eugene could push themselves to grow by thinking of how they might be able to show solidarity and friendship to the houseless community by coexisting with those who live on a public greenway, offering street parking in front of your house, perhaps closing your Airbnb, and offering a much-needed low-cost rental. Share conversation, resources, time, and stand up to those who use their privilege and rhetoric to criminalize the poor when people are dying on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Gonzalez, followed by Chanel.
Yes, my name is Jason Gonzalez. I do not live in the city. I actually live in the county, but I work downtown near 12th and Lincoln, where I did have right outside our front step, quite literally, sometimes taking up much of our front step, one of the recent downtown communities of folks of houselessness who've been moving around our area. I think it's really appropriate that so many folks are here tonight, both to comment on the climate action plan and on Eugene's homelessness crisis, because I think as we go forward in future years, these are the same issue. We know that climate change is rapidly happening now. It's not coming in some future, and we know the crises that are happening not only in our own country, but in others. I think that one thing we don't seem to take into account when we're making these climate action plans and discussing this houselessness issue is the very likely scenario that we have tens of thousands of people on our doorstep as a state in future years that are well within all of our vision. If we can't handle the situation we face today with dignity, if we can't handle the situation we face today without the hearing what the person before me described, that language, that fascist, racist language coming from so many business owners in our community, I don't think that that's a real plan. I don't think that we're actually planning for the future that we know we're facing. And if we can't make targets to do our job in avoiding that future, can we at least be planning to deal with the fallout of what we've created? I think it's shameful to watch the police spend all of these hard-earned taxpayer dollars from local folks in this community to harass the people that were camped outside the door of where I work for those weeks, who were perfectly easy for me to get along with, and who didn't seem to create any more of a mess than when I walk around some of the college neighborhoods, nor any more of a smell, despite that being so frequent on these people's evil Facebook page. So I'm calling on you to respond to this crisis as a crisis, and to respond to it a lot more dignified than we are now. A plan that starts in 18 months isn't a plan. We need something now. We need to treat people with dignity and respect.
Thank you. Janelle, followed by Alan Hancock.
Hi there, my name's Chanel. I'm here to discuss the houseless situation in Eugene today. It's an easy thing to do in any situation of injustice, whether it's racism, violence, or houselessness, to turn to the individual experiencing the injustice and ask, what have you done to deserve this? This is, in essence, the just world fallacy in action, or the belief that good and nice things happen to good and nice people, and bad and horrible things happen to bad and horrible people. This fallacy keeps us not only under the illusion that we have control over our lives and whether or not we become the victims of such things, but also under the illusion that those of us with roofs over our heads and money in our pockets are not complicit in a system that demands that there are both winners and losers, those on the top and those on the bottom, people who own businesses and those living on the streets outside of them. I'm here to ask that if you are complaining about the behavior of homeless in Eugene, that you consider the problem is not located in the individual, but it is the problem of a capitalist society that gives and cares little for the most marginalized members of our community. And when a society cares nothing for you, can you hardly be blamed for the expression of your righteous anger or indignation? I have nothing but respect for what Wake Up Eugene is calling lawlessness in Eugene, because those who the law was created to protect do not get to claim to be victims of anything except for their own unwillingness to see people living on the streets as people. But as we've seen recently in Eugene and from our current administration, this is the rallying cry of those with the most privilege and the most resources, that it is actually they who are afraid and they who are the victims of injustice, when those of us who work in social services and stare at the cracks in the system every day know it is quite the opposite. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Hancock, followed by Callie Hudson.
Yeah, Alan Hancock in Ward 3. I'm an advisory board member to the Eugene Friends of Trees, and I wanted to follow up a little bit from Eric Burke to talk a little bit more about the state of our urban forest. The current level of canopy coverage in Eugene is about 23%, according to city staff, and with industrial areas in West Eugene as low as like 7%. Now, for comparison, Portland is at about 30%, and other major cities around the country are up into the mid-30s. So we're definitely behind. Unfortunately, we're losing our canopy because we've had snowstorms, we've had ice storms, we've had drought, we've got problem with insects infesting birch trees. Almost all the birch trees in the city will be gone in years to come as a result of the insect. And climate change, of course, is placing additional stress on trees, which may look good now, but in a few years may not look so good and may need to be cut. So now really is the time. The city has a contract with Friends of Trees, but unfortunately it's really not enough. And as a result, what we're going to see is our urban canopy in decline. So we're going to need to find some additional funding to be able to bring our canopy level up at least to maintenance level, and hopefully up to the level of what the city staff would like, which is planting about 2,000 trees a year. We're not even close to that point right now. The good news is that the cities of Portland, Oregon and Vancouver, Washington, in conjunction with Friends of Trees, has worked hard and have been able to increase their tree canopy. It's been measurable. So I've been in conversation with members of the Budget Committee, and we're going to be looking at where we can find more additional funding, and I welcome you to also look for that funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Callie Hudson, followed by Augustine Beard.
Hi, my name is Callie Hudson from Ward 2, and I'm a senior at the University of Oregon, and I've been a member of the Eugene community for nearly 10 years. I'm here to speak about houselessness in our community and what I find to be the overwhelmingly inhumane response there has been by groups like Eugene Wake Up. Houselessness is an issue that does not reflect on the individual who experiences it, but rather the institutionalized barriers within our society and our support efforts as a community. The people who make up the unhoused population are our most vulnerable and marginalized: immigrants, queer people, people of color, people with disabilities, people with illnesses. An attack on unhoused people is an attack on these identities as well. We should all know by now that tough on crime policies do not work. It does nothing but feed these vulnerable people into more dangerous situations. To be clear, houselessness in Eugene is not an issue of lawlessness, but an issue of inadequate community support and compassion. There's no comprehensive system in place that adequately traces and counts the number of people who have died on our streets. But the data does draw attention to the fact that being unhoused exacerbates the likelihood of death. For example, the folks that are on our frontline communities in Eugene that were impacted by severe weather like the snowstorm we witnessed last February. There are human lives lost that could have been prevented. Let's never forget that. I took time out of studying for finals, which I have in like 12 hours, because I am disappointed in my community. We live in the richest country in the world, and yet we have people who don't have the basic necessities to live. This is one of the biggest contradictions in this nation, and one that should make us all upset. We need to be better community members and support those among us who need it the most. And we need people with privilege to stand against the criminalization of poverty in our community, which is what Eugene Wake Up is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Augustine Beard, followed by Rowan. Augustine, are you still here? Maybe not. Is Rowan here? Okay, good. And Rowan will be followed by Diana Bilofsky.
Hi, Rowan, Ward 1, and I'm here to talk about 5G. I've been here twice before at public forum, and I promised last time that I would be back to hopefully be more persuasive on this issue that I care about. And since then, I thought maybe I should do a little more research, and I thought who better to talk with than my council member, which I did. Emily graciously met with me and gave of her time and her insight, and she gave me a few tips to follow through on, which I did. She suggested I go to the Oregon League of Cities website and look for a case, I guess a joint lawsuit that the Eugene City Council, meaning you, voted to join, if I understood you correctly. I was encouraged by that, and I'm encouraged also by my conversation with Councilor Evans just before this forum began. You being the president of the League of Oregon, the Oregon League of Cities for, I guess, the year. And you said to look for a case that's going to be at the U.S. District Court in California in January. And I was already aware of, let's see, I'm saying this for everyone. I believe it's important to stay on this issue. I notice I'm the only one who's speaking about this issue tonight, and I don't want it to fade. I want to keep it alive because I have my own personal health concerns, which I've shared about previously. So there's one other site I want to make public, scientists4wiretech.com.
Thank you. Thank you. Diana Bilofsky, followed by Sean Foster.
Hi, I'm Diana Bilofsky, and I'm from Amazon, Mr. Zelenka's place. My main concern with STRs is about what it does to affordable housing. I noticed that in the last 3 years, all of a sudden there was this zoom up, almost like a hockey stick. And not just in this town, all over. And so I started doing some research, and I found this astounding thing. Oh, yes, it's because Airbnb changed their model. All of a sudden, instead of rooms in a home, they started promoting not just whole houses, but also now whole apartments. And I found this astounding figure by crunching the numbers. In this town, conservatively, we have 7,000 units that have been removed. 10% of our housing stock has been removed by short-term rentals. And as far as it not having a cost, great cost. We have the increase in the cost of homelessness. We have the increase in city staff and police to deal with complaints. We have the ecological issue, you know, of increased carbon as people have to move further and further away. So I'm very concerned about this. I think for de minimis, we need to get these units back. There's also now, we're poised for a trifecta that's going to be even worse. So Airbnb has this thing called Friendly Buildings Program, which is profit sharing with landlords to STR apartments. They also now have a 9-year contract to provide Olympics housing. And the U of O has now turned into a permanent event center with no obligation to create housing for their tourists. So I'm hoping you will bring back our housing.
Thank you. Sean Foster, followed by Arlie David Diaz Malachi. Do we have Sean Foster here? Maybe not. How about Arlie David Diaz Malachi? Yes. And you are Arlie Diaz?
I am Arlie.
Okay, excellent.
David
And you'll be
Diaz.
followed by Jessica Hamrick.
Yes, I come to you this evening as an American citizen, civilian, and a Christian. I come to you as an American. I'm here to inform you as a messenger that there are certain members of local and state governments who are complicit in federal civil rights violations. Right. Here's a reading of Section 241 USC, Title 18. This statute makes it unlawful for two or more persons to conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person of any state, territory, or district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him, her, by the Constitution or the laws of the United States, or because of his or her having exercised the same. It further makes it unlawful for two or more persons to go in disguise on the highway or on the premise of another with the intent to prevent or hinder his or her free exercise or enjoyment of any rights so secured. Punishment varies from a fine or imprisonment up to 10 years or both, and if death results, or if such acts include kidnapping or an attempt to kidnap, aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to kill, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for any term of years or for life, or may be sentenced to death. Title 18, USC, Section 242, Deprivation of Rights under color of the law. This statute makes it a crime for any person acting under color of law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom to willfully deprive or cause to be deprived from any person those rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution and laws of the U.S. This law further prohibits any person acting under color of law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or customs, or willfully subject or cause to be subjected any person to different punishments, pains, or penalties than those prescribed for punishment of citizens on account of such person being an alien or by reason of his or her color of race.
Thank you. Thank you.
Acts under color of any law include acts not only done by federal, state, or local officials
you.
within the bounds or limits of their lawful authority, but also acts done without and beyond the bounds of their lawful authority.
Thank you. You can submit more in writing. You have more to say?
I think that's sufficient.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Jessica Hamrick. Jessica here? Okay, good. And she'll be followed by Katia Juliana.
Do I just start talking? Hi, I'm Jessica.
If you, excuse me, speak at the podium, use the microphone and speak, say your name and where you're from, and then present to us.
All right, I'm really excited, sorry. So my name is Jessica Hamrick, Hamrick. I wasn't really sure how to do this tonight. I just decided that I'm going to be involved in the community, and we're better to be involved in the here. So I learned about you guys through Mugshots of Lane County, so I appreciate them. I'm ready to change the city, and I'm not sure how to go about doing that, but I learn everything through trial and error. So I make my mistakes and then I learn from them. So I'm a small business owner. I do housekeeping and more. I do all kinds of stuff, but I'm a mother of 3 daughters, one who is transgender, going from female to male. I deal with 2 suicidal children. I work with Oregon Children Learning Center Fair Program. I am an addict. I have 20-some days clean. I have had clean time before, but this time I've learned my lesson. And I'm presenting myself today because I put myself on Front Street because I plan on making big changes. So on Facebook, I have me in my drug use, me getting sober, and then me being clean. And I UA daily. And I work with child welfare with my child who is at the Children's Farm in Corvallis. But I'm speaking today because, sorry, I know that we're on timer, so it's about homelessness. So 5 days ago, I almost became homeless. And it in order for my child to come home to me, I have to have a home. And so I'm making a change. And so this is just kind of a rough draft of it. And I'm going to be starting a nonprofit organization to bring homeless off the street. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Katia Juliana? Is Katia here? She's gone? Okay. Eric Jackson, followed by Zachary Vishinoff.
Hey guys, Eric Jackson, at large at the moment. Not in Ward 1 for the moment. Today I was woken up by 2 police officers, ticketed for prohibited camping, as usual. But it was slightly different today because they paid attention to the fact that there were lots of bikes that were not associated to people. And they put them all in the truck and took them to evidence for people to choose to pick up. They also, and this is at you, Sarah, chose to help us bag some of the trash, put it to the side, and contact Public Works. Public Works came out, 4 employees from Public Works came out. They made some phone calls, busy on their cell phones. And they couldn't pick up the trash because Public Works does not have a policy of being a trash removal company. Yet if there were nobody there, Public Works would have been happy to pick up all of our property, throw away any of it that was wet, any of the food that we just purchased, and any of the trash. But not until it becomes a health and safety concern. When did health and safety concerns and $23 million for health and safety concerns eliminate sanitary facilities and removal of trash that's rotting in bags that could cause rodents in the community, that could cause sickness in the community, that causes stench in the community? But I regularly have a trash guy that comes and picks it up and pays to have it brought to the city dump and dumped, or the county dump and dumped. And he shouldn't have to do that because eventually Public Works picks it up. So why not as we go?
Thank you. Zachary Vishinoff, and our final speaker will be Stefan Struck.
Hello, Zach Vishnoff. Just here to bring a couple reports. Just to give you a basic idea of what they're about is there was some attempt to clean up some toxic waste at the e-website before you build a neighborhood there. And in these reports, these are by the DEQ, it explains how basically you did the least possible effort and the least possible funding to clean it up, and now you're hoping to build a really world-class neighborhood and everybody will live happily ever after. I'm going to hand these to your city manager and hope she reviews them, and I put a little Christmas bow on them, just, you know, a little holiday reading, and I hope the mayor will read them and circulate them through the council. You know, it's one thing to show someone a website, and it's another thing to just give them a printed copy. So that's what this is about. And, but on the Airbnb issue, I would urge you to find, you know, you heard all the good things about this tonight, right? I'm on the Airbnb is the devil side of this issue. Capitol Drive has had a notorious Airbnb who likes to leave cars parked in Capitol Drive. Well, if you're a fire engine and you're going up to these nice homes up there and to the forest up there, these cars they park on the sidewalk and then halfway in the street. So I urge you to gather a list of the Airbnb mega offenders, and that way when you create a study about what you should allow, that way you'll have an idea of what the worst case scenarios are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker, Stefan Struck.
Excellent. Well, thank you for introducing me. My name is Stefan Streck, and Airbnb is, really not something that the city council has any business regulating. It's there for a reason so that people can do their own thing. And you're kind of pulling the rug out from all these people who have no other option for making money. I mean, it's inconvenient to see people you don't know on your street. What's it feel like to watch your neighbors get their mortgage revoked and lose their house because they couldn't get their property rented? I mean, that's what's happening. You're watching all the houses disappear from Eugene. One by one, they're being destroyed. I used to live in a house, and it was awesome. I lived with my girlfriend, my best friend, another girl, and my dog in a 3-bedroom house, and it cost $795. That's affordable housing. 4 walls and a roof, $200 a person, and it was right on Willamette Street. Probably everybody who's lived here drove past that house. It's 2954 Willamette, little house right on Willamette Street, next to the gas station Chevron. It had tapestries in every window. Someone probably remembers it. It was pretty obvious. And I loved that house. But now it's probably like $1,350 to $1,500 for the same place, and it's no different. It's a little house in the middle of a parking lot. But it was beautiful. I was so happy there. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I wouldn't have it go any other way. And what you're replacing it with, that's not really Eugene. That's something else. I think it's time to make Eugene great again. Give more people that opportunity. Real housing. Thank you.
Thank you. And that ends our public forum. Are there counselors who wish to, Counselor Surratt? Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thanks. Most of the people who've made public comment have left, understandably so, but I want to thank everyone who came out to speak to us, and I wanted to respond particularly to the folks from who are Airbnb hosts, and I'll probably mention some of these things at our work session as well. First of all, I want to say I don't think anyone on this council is seeking to shut down the Airbnbs or overregulate them. We've had only one very preliminary discussion on this topic, and from my perspective, I think we can take time to look into what the real issues are, what problem we are trying to solve, and I plan to ask staff to, and my fellow counselors, to consider directing staff to engage current short-term rental operators in a discussion about their businesses, how they operate, what kind of regulations might seem reasonable. I thought the gentleman who offered the model of the Active Transportation Commission was interesting, maybe a short-term committee of that type. I do feel like we need to get more clear data and facts about this type of small business in our community so that we have a better understanding of the actual problems, the scale of those problems, and what policies we might adopt to address them. And I don't think we're there yet. We have a draft ordinance based on a preliminary conversation. I don't know how the rest of my fellow counselors feel, but I don't feel a need to rush to have a public hearing and pass an ordinance. I think we can take some time. When we were looking into regulations for Uber and Lyft, we sat down with those companies, and staff spent a lot of time with those representatives from those companies, and those companies aren't operated from this community. And so I think we owe the short-term rental hosts the same type of attention for what I think they represented as, a viable small business that I think can fit into a neighborhood if it's done in an appropriate manner and mitigates the negative impacts that could happen on nearby neighbors. There was a critique that we're not funding the TAC. There is funding rolling over in tonight's supplemental budget to fund the TAC. We haven't found places to spend all that money yet, but there is also an active hiring process for the strategic manager for that project that is going on right now. That job is posted. We are trying to hire for it. I also agree on cap 2.0, that we should be engaging the community in this plan, that community engagement is going to be critical to seeing us close the gap and reach our goals. I don't have more time. Oh, one last thing. I do plan to send out a work session poll on our urban forestry program. Thank you.
Great. Do you want to?
I was just going to say, I think we're already planning on doing that because we talked about it at one of our earlier work sessions.
The urban forestry? Great. Thank you.
Any other counselors? Counselor Semple.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody who came tonight, even though most of you have left. It was a really big crowd, and what was especially unusual about it is I haven't seen so very many of you before. I know that the short-term rental people have been working very hard. I met with some of them this morning. Maybe it was yesterday, I can't remember. I was just really impressed by the way they worked together and came here and gave us some information and how they're feeling about it. So congratulations for a really good showing. And I'm also thankful to everyone else who came, the Green New Deal students, the Climate Revolution by Bike. Yes, we need to be walking and riding our bikes more. And both sides of the STR, not just the massive first group, but mostly just thank you for coming. It's really, really important to hear from you, and it's really cool to hear from new people. And I hope that you'll be able to make it a month until we can get to hear from you again. Have wonderful holidays. Thank you.
Counselor Taylor.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who spoke. Some people, there seems to be a lot of misinformation around. No one has suggested totally banning short-term rentals. However, I think it's really important that we do some regulation before we have the problems that other cities have had. Barcelona, Spain was almost destroyed by short-term rentals. Hood River, Oregon has had really big problems because of short-term rentals. It's a complicated situation. It's really important that we do something before it is a huge problem. And I'm glad that we're doing it. I think the ordinance that we have to consider is an excellent one. It doesn't make anyone give up what they're doing right now. And it doesn't ban them totally at all. There's no thought of that. And I'm glad that the urban forestry people came. That's really important to our future. And I admire the young people who got together and spoke to us. It was excellent. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, I want to also just thank everyone who came. I think actually, Councillor Syret said a lot of things that I was thinking too, that as we look at the STRs, short-term rentals, what are the problems we're trying to solve, and look at that fairly clearly. Appreciate all the comments on climate action and always the work that we are doing on homelessness, which I know feels like it never comes fast enough, but we actually work on that every day. So we will have more resolution in terms of housing and shelter options as we go forward. All right, with that, we will end this session of the public hearing. I have a little agenda explanation for council. I thought we could do the consent calendar now and then take a 10-minute break before we come back to the supplemental, or do you want to just power through? You want to power through? Okay, we'll just power through.
Betty doesn't want to power through.
Betty doesn't want to power through, but it is 9:35. You're all feeling like you can power through? All right. Okay. All right. So if we're powering through, we start with the consent calendar. Can I have a motion? Have a motion on the consent calendar?
Oh, I was ready for the break.
Right.
I move approval of items on the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm missing, Mike. Is he on the phone? Mike?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. Thank you. Okay, so powering through, we'll go on to the next item, resolution acknowledging receipt of the annual financial report of the Urban Renewal Agency.
Mayor, if I can interrupt.
Oh, wait, I have to hammer out. I have to gavel out. I apologize. I got to gavel out of the council meeting and gavel into the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency. Thank you. Okay, now we're ready for the resolution acknowledging receipt of the annual financial report of the Urban Renewal Agency. I'm going to put a,
So for each one of these items that you have tonight, I have some talking points, some longer than others. So if you want me to ground everybody in the room and what we're doing with each of these, I can do that. Or if you feel like you.
It's only staff.
What's that?
It's only staff.
And people running for city council.
They really like to be grounded regularly. All right, how about we just start with this one?
okay, that's,
See how it
that's great.
goes.
Yep,
All right.
sounds great.
So, as you know, we have an audit every year, and so the audit firm Eisler CPA has completed the agency's annual financial report for the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2019, and issued a clean opinion, meaning the information in the financial report is accurate and reliable. The auditors noted nothing came to their attention, causing them to believe that the agency was not in compliance with state regulations pertaining to deposit of public funds, preparation and adoption of the budget, accounting records, and the related internal control structure. The resolution before you tonight acknowledges the agency received the financial report, and if you have any questions, Finn Cronin is here and can answer those.
Okay, any questions? All right, Counselor Taylor, you want to put the motion on the table?
I move to approve the, or am I here? Okay. I move to adopt a resolution acknowledging receipt of the annual financial report of the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mike?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Okay, on to number 4.
All right. So number 4 is the public hearing and action on supplemental budget for the Urban Renewal Agency. This is an opportunity for you to hear from the public on the first FY19 supplemental budget for the URA. Supplemental budget that occurs in December of a fiscal year is usually the largest because of the audit adjustments to budgeted beginning working capital and the reappropriation of funds from the prior fiscal year for contracts, program initiatives, or projects that were started but not completed in that fiscal year. This supplemental budget consists of transactions to amend the Urban Renewal Agency budget to reconcile beginning working capital and capital carryover. These are a lot of words late at night. To reappropriate those dollars or place them into reserve, and authorizes other unanticipated changes in legal appropriations for the current fiscal year, FY19. Approval is requested tonight in order to allow for the necessary legal appropriations.
Okay, and we have, it looks like, wait, is there a difference? This is the URA, this is the next one. Okay, so we just have one person to testify. Surprise, surprise, John Borowski. And I think you know the rules, John. You got 3 minutes.
2. You don't have to use them all.
But you don't have to use them all, right?
Good evening, John Borowski from the accounting firm of Spaghetti, Pizza, and Pepperoni. Not much to say about the Urban Renewal Agency supplemental budget today. I'd like to thank staff for answering the questions that I proposed to them, helping clear up some of the numbers that were there that kind of stood out. I think that going forward, you guys are going to have a lot of work to do with the Urban Renewal Agency. We've gone through this for the last, gosh, this is about my 13th year standing up here doing this, and most times on Urban Renewal Agency, it's not much. You guys have done a lot of work in both Urban Renewal Agencies downtown and Riverfront. I think there's going to be more work coming up, whether that is changes to the plans or increasing debt ratios, those types of things I think will be some interesting discussions, and I hope to give you guys any kind of input that you would need on that, and I will avail myself at my normal rate of 1 pizza or pasta per consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. And that closes the public hearing. Are there any comments from council? All right.
Okay.
Councilor Taylor?
I move to adopt a resolution adopting supplemental budget, making appropriations for the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019, and ending June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All right, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Counselor Clark?
Aye.
Thank you, that passes unanimously. Okay, I will close out the Urban Renewal Agency and open up the City Council meeting. And now we have another public hearing.
We do, and I see something coming up. All right, this one's a mouthful here, too. So we're switching over to the city now, and again, doing another public hearing and action on your supplemental budget. This supplemental budget was made available to the public and advertised through multiple avenues, including the budgeted interested parties list, and is a legal ad in the Register Guard on December 2nd. It adjusts the adopted budget for audit adjustments, including beginning working capital and capital carryover, recognizes new revenue, and other unanticipated changes in legal appropriations to make progress on previously directed council initiatives and programs. I think as you noticed and as staff have met with you, we organized it slightly different this year, instead of just being in a department view, to highlight that there are strategic investments and reappropriations in the areas of climate recovery, community safety, housing, jobs and infrastructure, homelessness, and engagement. There were some additional investments that we'd like to highlight, which included the $900,000 general capital project transfer, which has been a priority for marginal beginning working capital from days past, and we're continuing that forward. The $500,000 transfer to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and the community safety loan from the general fund reserve for revenue shortfall to the new community safety fund, which we kind of went through in that work session. I know some of these questions came up, so we also just want to say that with the proposed supplemental budget actions, including the $3 million community safety loan, the reserve for revenue shortfall is set at $16.4 million, or 9.3% of general fund expenditures, above our 8% target level. Under the current set of assumptions, the RRSF is forecast to be at 5.3 by the end of the forecast period in FY26. Approval is requested tonight in order to allow for necessary legal appropriations.
Okay, thank you. We have 4 people asking to speak on this. And I think I'll just quickly, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. You filled out a form. There are lights on the timer. Red light tells you you're finished. The first up is Eliza Kaczynski, followed by John Borowski.
Good evening. I'm Eliza Kaczynski. I live in Ward 1, and I'm a member of the citizen member of the Budget Committee, though I'm speaking on my own behalf tonight. When I rushed home last week to read the supplemental budget, because that's what I do, one thing that really jumped out at me was the amount of money that was being proposed to come out of the reserve for revenue shortfall. It was $12 million, which is almost 40% of the reserve. It brings down the reserve below what we had projected to have 5 years out in 2025. That's even after you account for the sort of previously discussed withdrawals for public safety funding. About 1.5 of that coming out is for new money. 1.5 million of that coming out is new money for new projects that really haven't had the same kind of public discussion. And this proposal was released a week ago. By comparison, when we did the budget last year, we spent a month and a half in Budget Committee, some more time in front of council, discussing about $3 million worth of one-time funds and changes to the budget. This is a lot of money to be coming out of the reserve with so little conversation about it. The reserve is often described as the city's emergency fund, and thank you for clarifying what it would be 5 years from now with these changes. But, you know, with it being our emergency fund, we do want to keep that healthy in the long term. And, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have a personal emergency fund for my family. And when we, as a family, are going to take money out of that emergency fund, we don't communicate about that by putting a Post-it note on the fridge. we actually sit down around the table and have a discussion. So I know that there are a lot of timing challenges with having more in-depth discussion around the supplemental budget with the audit and that information. And I want to thank staff who took the time to talk to me this week and help me understand everything that was going on here. But I hope that in the future, if we do have supplemental budgets that are making such big proposals, that we take some time with Budget Committee to actually look at them a little bit more in depth. And thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you. John Vorosky, followed by Steve Oakes.
Good evening, John Borofsky, Ward 3. Tonight, I'd like to bring to your attention some of the highlights of the $18 million plus that you will be authorizing with the passage of the supplemental budget this evening. The majority of the money in that number is reappropriations of funds that have already been approved through other budget decisions. However, there are some new one-time requests that will be used to further council goals and policies. Of those, there is $140,000 to help plan and implement the CRO. $200,000 in the community safety bucket. There's $200,000 for downtown ops funding, $64,000 for 911 GIS contract, and $500,000 for EPD contracts. In the housing, jobs, and infrastructure, there's $75,000 to help planning for House Bill 2001. There's $350,000 to help finish the railroad quiet zone. There's $100,000 to help implement the River Road Santa Clara plan. In the housing and homelessness issues, $1.4 million is being reappropriated or added to help with the solution. Some important one-time funding in this area are $50,000 to backfill the SDC waiver program for low-income housing. And I bet that's what Steve's here for. A very worthwhile program and one that I think you need to look at in the future ongoing. $60,000 for the homeless storage program. $140,000 for right-of-way cleanup. And finally, the $500,000 that's going to the Affordable Housing Trust. I'd also like to bring to your attention that the special election for the charter amendment costs $186,000, just so you guys know. Last thing I would like to say is with some of the community safety funding that's going on, part of that ordinance was to create a payroll tax citizen advisory board. I think it's important that we get to work on that because right now with loans going back and forth from the general fund to the community safety fund, now is a really important time to make sure that the transparency is there and that the trust is there for the community for what you guys had the courage to enact and give us the backstop. So I think that that's important to get that up and running. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Oakes, followed by Zachary Vishnoff.
Hello, my name is Steve Oakes. I'm here on behalf of Homes for Good Housing Agency, and it's going to keep it much shorter because John plugged exactly what I was going to plug. So in your packet, there is $50,000 set aside for a affordable housing project from Homes for Good out in Taney Place. And in the past, the SDC waivers have been just a great tool. What they do is they allow us to leverage money from the state and federal government also. And there's always been enough of them. But lately, because of the housing crisis, we've just been needing to build so much more affordable housing, and there's been a lot more money out from the state to do it. And so kind of forecasting ahead, there'll be the need for probably more, and as we look at how we use the Affordable Housing Trust Fund also, I think there's a real chance here to make a difference in the community with, getting more permanent supportive housing units out on the ground and affordable housing units. So we really thank staff and city council and, been great proponents of affordable housing through the years, and it's going to have to just continue and probably even step up a bit. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, Zachary Vishanoff.
Hi. Well, I guess this is the usual kind of a supplemental budget thing where something really important just kind of sneaks by. I mean, if you put an ad in the paper saying we have a supplemental budget hearing, that really doesn't tell anyone much. So maybe you could go to a greater effort to explain what is the hearing about. Your supplemental budget meeting sounds like, you know, you're having a little something extra for dinner or something. Breaking this down, this is like a treasure trove of stuff. Some of it necessary, some of it pork barrel, but it's this sidecar approach to the budget. It reminds me of that payroll tax that came through, and that really alienated a lot of people to have the police saying, we can't come out to 911 calls. We can't come out and deal with crime because we're out of money. The budget committee is supposed to do the budget. And doing these additional things or these side pots or these urban renewal funds, and then like having this little city hall nest egg kind of hidden, it's very complicated, and it seems to me it's complicated on purpose to avoid, like, what are the public's real priorities. If you were to take all the money in all these little categories and put it into one debate so that the actual rational spending takes place, I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, the other things like the multiple unit property tax exemption. Some developers want it. Sometimes they give political gifts. It erodes the public's confidence that money is well spent. If you go down Willamette Street right now, it's a disaster. It's like some street in Afghanistan. Now, the 19th Street near U of O's promised sporting event is going to be all perfect by the time everyone shows up. So there's this kind of selective neglect around town, and this shoddy budget process that is it's just an ongoing theme. And I know Betty Taylor has been one person that over the years she has said urban renewal funds get spent outside the public eye, and she and I have always been very skeptical of urban renewal. And so thank you for that, Betty. And I wish Alan Pittman was still around to explain it to people, because this hearing would be stuffed with naysayers. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes the public hearing. Yes, so do you want to put a motion on the table?
Before we make
Before we talk,
comments,
do you want to, okay, we've got Alan and then you. Go for it. Go for it.
Oh, no
Councilor
motion yet.
Zelenka.
Okay, a couple of things. I noticed the CRO planning and implementation is yet again one-time funding. Do we have a plan to shift that to permanent or ongoing funding in upcoming budgets?
Well, what we tried to do in the supplemental budget was only put things in that we really felt like needed to happen this year, and put everything else in the budget for exactly the reasons that we've heard here, is that it's a longer process and more discussion. So yes.
So CRO and then upcoming budget will be in the regular budget as an ongoing permanent funded.
Well, we haven't gotten to that point where we're put it together, but that's where it would show up if we feel like we can do that.
Well, I encourage you to do that then. Ambulance reimbursement fund, or the ground emergency medical transport revenue, adds $700,000, but that doesn't solve the problem. There's still a gap associated with that, of approximately 600 and something thousand. Is that correct?
You're going to have to just like kneel. Just kidding.
Good evening, Twyla Miller, Finance Director. So yes, there still is a gap in the ambulance transport fund, at about $500,000 to $600,000 ongoing, partially funded with the community safety funds, but there is an ongoing gap.
Yeah, so, and we been struggling with that for years, and we still don't have a identified source for that.
Correct,
Fill
we're
that
working
gap.
on that.
All right, so that's an ongoing problem. Stay there. Reserve for revenue shortfall, currently 28.6 million. With the changes of 12.2 million, it goes down to 16.4 million. Still meets our goal of 8%. In this year, it's 9.3, so that's all good. But by 2026, that gets drawn down because of what we've taken out of it. And by 2026, it's 5.3, well below our 8% goal. So question is, do we have a plan to keep it at or above 8% moving forward?
Right, our goal is always 8%. We never like to see it drop below 5 so that we have flexibility as we look to the future. So, many things can happen between now and FY26. The other piece is we don't like to overcorrect now for something that may or may not happen out in the future. So we will be actively monitoring the fund and actions and uncertainties, as we always do, as we go through the budget cycle this year and in the coming years. So the goal would be to reach that target, that 8% target, on an ongoing basis.
But in the absence of some action or some revenue coming in, it'll go down to 5.3 by 2026.
Right, under the current set of circumstances. As you remember from a lot of our budget presentations, there are hundreds of variables that can impact our general fund forecast. So we would be watching all of those things. So it could be property taxes, PERS, there could be other revenues either going up or down, right, that we monitor over time. So we would look at all of those things as we look to the health of our general fund.
Okay, so we should keep an eye on that. The PERS buy down, August 2020 deadline to do that. I wasn't in favor if it reduced services, but I understand that's a separate process, and we're looking at options that don't reduce city services. Is that correct? And we've got a reservation in for a certain amount if we can figure out where to do it.
That's correct. We do have an application into the state for the Employee Incentive Fund, and staff are looking at a range of options, and those will come to the executive team and then back to council in the spring. Council would have to take action before we make any deposit to the state.
Again, yeah, I'd reiterate, I don't want to see it reduce services to do that, but I think it's a good, admirable goal to try to achieve. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, may I get in the queue, please?
Yes, you may.
After me, Mike. I think we do the supplemental budget way too casually, as Mr. Borowski has pointed out to us sometimes, without thinking about it enough. But there are things here that I would not want to spend the money on, but council did want to. But there are some things I think are contrary to council votes. I'm very concerned about spending $75,000 to implement the House Bill 2001, which council voted to have staff work to repeal that bill, and we have not yet waited to see if we can repeal it, but we're spending a big amount of money to implement it. That disturbs me. And the $1 million that we voted for shelter, and we did not vote that for homeless services, we voted it for a shelter, which means to me that it should be it should be used to build something or remodel something, which would be a shelter. And I see that we're transferring it to, I don't understand exactly what we're transferring it to, but it sounds as if can be now, after 2 years of nothing happening, as if it could be spent for something else besides a shelter. I'd like that clarified.
Do you want that clarified now? All of those things?
Well, if I vote on it, yes.
Okay. House Bill 2001, I will say, I believe that your motion that you directed us was start implementing and work to repeal during the legislative session. So this represents the start implementing. My understanding is we have met, we've done some work up front with some of our local legislators to see if there would be somebody willing to sponsor a bill and take this forward to repeal. And from what I understand, none of our local people were interested in doing that. So we're still exploring how do we continue to work on that issue and how do we address that issue. But the motion really directed us to also go forward, and so we felt like we needed to start doing that in order to meet those timelines.
The shelter's the big thing I wanted to.
Shelter. So what's happening in this budget is we're reappropriating the $1 million that you've already budgeted for. And the council took action not that long ago on the 1.9 in total, where we outlined kind of here's where those funds are going to be spent, and I believe took action on that. So I'm slightly confused on the.
I don't think we ever voted not to save that to use that money for a shelter.
And it's still listed as
That's what
a
it's
shelter.
designated for.
It's still listed as a shelter. It's still listed as for a shelter.
Okay, I'll have to clarify the second part of that, but what this budget does is reappropriate that $1 million as a homeless shelter option.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to vote no. There are a list of things that I would want to make amendments on, too numerous in order for us to have the time to do it this evening. I will probably want to discuss at some future point that when supplemental budgets reach a certain threshold of alteration, that we have some manner of public engagement, perhaps budget committee discussion in advance of approving the supplemental, just because there's more here than I'm comfortable with in terms of change. So authorizing this level of expenditure, I'm not comfortable with at this time.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Counselor Taylor, you want to put it?
Yes, thank you. I will read it. I move to adopt a resolution adopting a supplemental budget making appropriations for the city of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Counselor Clark? All in, okay, and no, opposed, Counselor Clark, Counselor Taylor, it passes. Thank you very much, and we actually are adjourned right at 10 o'clock. Well done.
Early.